Hey there, everybody. Welcome into Saturday Evening Quarantine, volume number 4. I'm David Jackson, joined by Hall of Famer Steve Brown, Randy Jackson on the Mass General Store Cityscape. Back there, we're glad you've joined us again this week. How's everybody doing?
Good.
What you got in the first of all, is that a pottery class like takeaway or something? What is that?
Classic pottery tour 2016. That come from Seagrove? Got me on that one.
I think that's part of his Bed Bath and Beyond loyalty.
Oh
yeah,
I remember that collection.
Yeah. That's some good stuff there. So what you got in the cup today? We're just going coffee.
A little water. Going water.
Hydrating.
Stay
hydrated. I've got the remnants of a banana right here too. If you need some more potassium, we'll get into that. Dad, what you rolling with there?
Just some coffee, but I have a couple of other items for later in the day today. Still with our sponsorship idea, we got the Boone Creek.
Right.
I have a cold one of those today, and a new one. Brownie might be interested in this too. This is I've not seen this before. This is a Blue Moon product. Wow. It's called Light Sky, and it's one of those low carb, low calorie beers made with tangerine peel.
Wow!
And it's pretty tasty. I got to tell you, kind of like it.
Try that out.
Yeah, I'll send you one, Brownie.
Perfect beer for a weatherman.
That goes really good in one of those pottery cups.
Does the thickness of the clay take away the taste of the tangerine peel, though? That's something that I would want to know from a palate.
Steve, I would think that the clay would be so thick that it would enhance the taste.
Brown, check that out for us. Report back next week.
Write that down on my to-do list.
Oh man, well I'm going with just some coffee as we record this again on Saturday morning. But I got my West Wing Weekly podcast cup here with the what's next. What's next? There you go.
How about that? Where'd you score that?
Off the West Wing Weekly podcast, one of the great podcasts out there. They had a merchandise thing there for a while, so they were selling coffee cups. I got a coffee cup. So there you go. It's not a pottery deal though. There was no Bed Bath and Beyond loyalty points harmed in the making of that story.
Was this a quarantine purchase or was this sometime?
This was a while back. Back. Been sipping out of this one for a bit. But to fully disclose this whole Bed Bath and Beyond thing, so I can't even remember when it was. It was years ago. We'd talk quite frequently amongst the three of us back in the day. And one day I happened to call Brown, and he's like, "Hey man, let me call you back. I'm a Bed Bath and Beyond," and that just let it all go. I don't think he's ever heard the end of that, nor will he ever. So last week we opened up the email inbox. It's a banquet beer at gmail.com, which reminds us that one of our assumed sponsors off this is, of course, Rocky Mountain Cold Coors Light, reminding you that 21 means 21. And Brownie?
It's a banquet beer.
There we go. All right. So we're off and running now. But we started this Gmail account, and nobody shut it down yet. We haven't gotten any legal paperwork from the folks at Coors shutting our email account down. So we actually got a couple of emails in from last week that we'll get to here in a minute. But again, we urge you to drop us a line, drop us photos, drop us video requests at itsabanquetbeer@gmail.com. We will do our best to get your questions answered. And we'll get into that here in a few minutes. But we've got to start with some of our staple things first. And we've got an update to one of our early deals, this being our favorite segment, Yard Like Brian's. So you'll notice that Brian has a little different image in his yard like picture this week. Brownie, what kind of intel have you been able to get on this for us?
Well, after last week's tape, and I texted Brian, I was like, what would be better than get an up-to-date photo of the backyard? And I said, hey, Brian, send me an image, send me a picture of your backyard. I'm trying to get inspired to change my landscaping up. And he sent back, hey, we moved out of that house 2 years ago working on a Spanish remodel. And so I immediately called David up. I said, you're not going to believe this. Brian's moved He's been 2 years into this thing. He's not totally done with it yet. And so you came up with the great graphics there. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's the Alamo, just in case anybody wonders. If we're talking about Spanish remodels, I mean, this is about as period specific as we can get right here. So, yeah, I don't know if Brian has that much Tensa barrier in front of his house, although I would imagine that he's got to queue up a line or two for people that want to come and check out what kind of rock grass blend he is putting in the backyard these days. Did he give you any sense of what the yard work on the previous house did for the resale value of that?
No, I'll have to investigate it a little bit. I started to send it right back, but after I talked to you, we were laughing so hard, I just had to take a week off, and I'm gonna call him on Monday. I'm gonna get some details about this purchase. I promise you that.
Okay, all right.
Tell you what, it looks really fantastic with the picture of the sky in the background, which of course I guess a weather person would understand. But man, that's big time right there.
It's almost like a light sky, perhaps. Brought to you by our friends here at Blue Moon.
Yes, it is. You're right.
Yes.
Good call on that.
Yes. So one of our loyal listeners from back in the day, the other one, not the one guy, but the other one, Mark Hartzell sent us a question to throw in the yard like Brian's. He's tired of the mole conversation, which I get, whatever. Mark has always been elevated in his abilities in the backyard. But he wanted to know specifically, and this could go either way, Brownie. I'm going to pose this to you. He wanted to get in a little barbecue conversation, which is a favorite pastime of any Appalachian football fan. So I don't know whether he went the route of do you have a good barbecue, like physical barbecue, or if we're talking about the actual food barbecue, because that, we want to make sure that we lead you down the right path.
I think Mark's probably talking about more tomato-based or vinegar-based. And me, I'm a vinegar-based guy. Being from Goldsboro, that's what I grew up on. I'm always a vinegar-based guy. But I think he's talking about different types of, and of course, down around Columbia, they got the Maurice's, the mustard-based barbecue.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I vote vinegar.
You vote vinegar. Randy Jackson, former Lexington barbecue celebrity judge, right? Didn't you judge?
Yes, Lexington and Burlington both.
Yeah. So
I go with the vinegar base too, Brownie. I'm kind of with you on that one.
Wow. Well, we'll stay deep V here, and we'll go vinegar for me as well. And this might sound gross, but it's not really some of my favorite barbecue is the barbecue we used to have in our school cafeteria back in the day at Jesse Wharton Elementary School, and they made that with all the vinegar. I mean, it was like biting into a vinegar sandwich with a little bit of meat in it, but it tastes.
You got to question a guy who likes institutional barbecue.
Institutional Barbecue is a new video series that we'll be starting next week.
It's a shame we don't want to talk about the mole hole anymore, man. I got the perfect solution for you.
Oh, do you? Well, let's bring it back up.
After much consternation and research, get you a pack of Mentos, drop them in the hole, get a 2-liter bottle of Coke, pour that bad boy in there, and watch that thing foam, and those moles will go running.
Interesting.
Wow.
Remember how you used to put Mentos in a Coke and the thing would explode all over the place?
Yeah. Interesting. That sounds very much like a Bill Murray remedy to this solution without the firepower. So we'll try that. Anybody that does put Mentos and carbonated beverage down in your yard, don't sue us when it dies. Speaking of dead yards, Brownie, do we have any growth coming back in the previously torched earth that you had in your weed roundup?
We've had so much rain here lately. It's been crazy. We had 2 or 3 nights ago, had 2 or 3 inches in about a 4-hour span. So I think the sun's come out now. So we'll see here in about another week. I'll get a response next week to you.
Okay. All right. Well, you got some pictures to take, man. You got a real estate report to get, and you got some photos. So we're looking forward to that. All right. So we're going to the archive section here, and Brownie, you said that I got these text messages on my phone the other day, and it's all these pictures of Brown, and I'm like, I almost did the whole new phone who dis deal because I didn't know who it was, but you said it was Steve Wyatt sent these in?
I think it was Steve Wyatt. I knew it was dangerous when he asked me for your contact number.
Okay. All right. So So Steve hooked us up. I wanna.
Wow.
We're breaking out the. We're gonna break out the telestrator here because I wanna really focus in on this arm action right here. Can you give us an idea here of whether that was good form or not?
I think this guy. I wish I had telestrator. You see the guy beating Scott McConnell inside here.
Yeah. So this dude is definitely he is on his way right to the QB.
He's got number 8 targeted right there for his face mask.
But I'm curious here. You look like you're a little bit leaning back on the back foot, but coming forward with the front motion there. I mean, how would you grade yourself in this particular setting?
I think I'm sprinting to the corner trying to get away from that guy. And they had a very athletic team, and I guess as David came from '78.
Yes.
You and I were talking before we went on the air. That's one of the first TV games, and I was so excited because I used to watch Notre Dame all the time growing up, and Terry Hanratty, former quarterback, was doing the color commentary of that game, and actually came down before the game and had some pregame interviews with us and stuff like that. For us back then, I think it's one of the first regionalized TV games on, and that was big time for us back in the day.
Didn't, if I remember this right, didn't Don Drysdale do one of your games too?
That was in the Furman, my senior year. Played Furman. Don Drysdale, a guy named Rick Farzana, if you remember, he was the coach for a while with the Detroit Lions. And kind of a good story on that. We may have talked about this before, but the night before the game, we're in the old Owens Fieldhouse, and Rick Farzana was doing the color, and Don Drysdale, who was a big baseball star in my mind, I was kind of starstruck by him. We're walking out after the interview. He said, "Hey, QB," and I turned around. I was like, "Is he talking to me?" He said, "Hey, where's a place a man could get a great steak and a beer?" And back in the day, it was Blowing Rock. It's all you had. I didn't know where to send him to go get a steak. I knew where to send him to go get a beer. But I went back to the dorm and was bragging on Don Drysdale, asking for beer tips.
So where'd you send him?
How about that?
What was that little place out there as you come around past Blowing Rock Country Club? It's changed name a couple of times. On the right there with a great patio and a great view.
Oh, yeah, that's Ridgeline now.
Yeah. Back in the day, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Look at you sending some ambiance out there. You didn't send him to PB Scott's though.
No. I didn't send to PB Scott's or the other place, Shenanigans, $3 drink and drown.
Oh man.
Hey, I got a question about this picture. It's a little grainy. It's hard for me to see it here. But the ball is gone, isn't it? Or is it buried in his hand somewhere? I mean, it looks like he got the pass off.
I think he got it off. I think Scotty Moe did just enough.
Was it complete, Brian?
Block. He did the old Spanish Olay block on you. Look at it.
Here's another image here with Brown on the move. This really shows. Again, we'll break out the telestrator here and just show the amazing footwork of the option QB here. I really like the white shoes here. I didn't know you were a white shoes QB. That would have been maybe even a better Twitter handle than Antique QB. To of course nod to your obvious antiquing skills.
Back in the day, our budget was so bad. I'm trying to see, were those Adidas or Spot?
Those are Adidas. They're 3 stripes right there. You can see them.
So
Keds?
You had two choices. You had the choice of doing the real small, almost like golf soft spikes, or a more aggressive cleat. And in my senior year, Mickey Bell, who grew up at Goldsboro, played at North Carolina, Dean Smith, had a really good job with Converse, and he sent me a couple of pair of Converse for my senior year. That was big time back then, because you only had whatever the school had, and they gave you a couple of pair of shoes before the year. If you remember the Virginia Tech story, I gave the kid my shoes.
Yeah.
Come back in there on Monday, and the trainer and the equipment guy, what do you mean you gave away your shoes? Hey, guy wanted your shoes.
Oh, man.
You know the background with this picture, though, don't you? You know what this picture became so famous for?
What's that?
In one of my interviews with Armani Edwards, he told me that as he grew up as a child, he got a hold of this picture and studied it every night before he went to bed, because the form was just so incredible. And he said, man, if I could grow up to be a quarterback and have that kind of form, I could write my own ticket. And look what happened.
It does look very Armani-esque. Ball security, very similar. He used to run with it up around his chest.
He was a 4'4", and I'm a 4'9". There's a big difference.
I just like how we have Copernicus over here discovering the scenario that is E.J. Whitmire Stadium. It looks more like Leonardo DiCaprio.
And if you remember back in the day, you had one side had stadiums, the other side had none.
Right. Well, so this game here, where these pictures came from, first of all, when you see the words WCU and Title Hopes together, that makes you almost feel like we're lying. But this was a game in '78 where this was the year that you guys went, what, 3-8 that year? And
78, we're 7-4.
7-4. So set up this. Why did you end Western Carolina's Title Hopes? Why'd you let them in that place to begin with?
Well, I think it was a chance for them to win the Southern Conference. If they win, they beat us. They win the Southern Conference. And I think in 1983, David and Randy, they played for the national championship. And I believe they played a team out of Illinois, didn't they?
Southern Illinois, they did. And they lost.
Yeah, they had some. I tell you what they did back in those days. Coach Waters and his coaching staff did a great job of recruiting South Carolina and Georgia. They used to go down there, and back in the day, Georgia didn't have as many universities as it does now. They did a tremendous job of getting guys maybe overlooked or didn't have any opportunity to go anywhere else. And to be honest with you, they had better players as depth wise, as far as 50 or 60 deep. They were better. As far as recruiting, they just did a better job.
So for those of us who didn't live here in 1978, what was the and I really don't know the answer to this question. What was the makeup of the Southern Conference then?
You had Citadel, you had East Tennessee, you had Furman, Chattanooga, if I hadn't already said that before.
Yep.
Us, I'm missing one.
Marshall.
Ah.
And when you get into Marshall's story, they had the plane crash. That 71, David?
Yeah.
They had the plane crash. And they were kind of up and coming. And, of course, their whole team coming back or leaving to go to East Carolina crashed.
Coming back.
Around Huntington.
Yeah.
So they were just now, they started back a couple of years later, as anybody's watched the movie knows, but they were starting to come on by the time I was a junior and senior. My senior year, I think we beat them 23-7. Before then, we'd always beat them 45-7. And, they were kind of struggling, but Sonny Randall had come there from East Carolina, and he was starting to really improve their recruiting. They got a lot of kids out of Florida, did some really good things, a couple of junior college kids, and I think the budget had started to be enhanced. And back when Coach Waters there at West Carolina, their budget and our budget were similar. As you know, once Mac Brown and John Thomas, we talked about before, put more money in our budget, Appalachia's around 83, then that kind of changed the fortunes for us. The West Carolina's always, in my mind, kind of stayed behind budget-wise.
Was James Madison in the league at that point too?
No, but that's, we started playing, that was my first game my senior year, we started playing James Madison.
Gotcha.
And we beat them, I think it was like 34-7, but you could tell they were a young program coming out of, I guess, a lower division, but you could tell they had some athletes, and that was kind of a cool place to play. And you could tell down the road they're going to be pretty good.
So we'll get into James Madison here in a minute. We may even tell a Richmond story or two since we're talking about Colonial Athletic Association teams. So I think real quick as we wrap this part up, I think it's interesting in this article. I'm not sure if any of you can see it. If you read the 4th paragraph down, it says a regional television audience, along with a crowd of 12,232, second largest in Whitmire Stadium history, witnessed the dismantling of the Cats by an Appalachian defense that reduced Western's big play offense to 53 desperation passes, a school record. I didn't know that desperation passes were a statistic. How many desperation passes did you throw?
Well, not a whole lot in 78, 79, and 80. I threw a bunch. But they had some great skill kids defensively. we kind of got them deep a couple times, and Scott McConnell had a great game, and Beasley caught some balls, and we kind of spread it around that in 78 a little bit against them. But they had some great little quick slot backs, and our defense really held up and turned the ball over some against them and played really well that game.
So it says here later in the article that Brown, a Goldsboro product, completed 13 of 22 passes for 225 yards and 3 touchdowns. McConnell caught 2 of Brown's strikes for 18 and 76 yards and also scored on a 2-yard run. He totaled 5 catches for 144 and rushed for an additional 49. You remember things really well, man. I'm impressed with what you keep under the lid there.
Hey, Scotty Moe was one that, you know, I've talked about it pound for pound. He's one of the best running backs that I had the opportunity to play with. I think he's in the Hall of Fame. He could do it all. He couldn't throw a lick, but everything else he could do.
You remember the one of 76? I mean, that sounds like a pretty exciting play there.
Yeah, well, we did. I think we ran Beasley on a curl route, and then Scott went to the flat and then did a wheel route and was wide open. Just, you know, didn't overthrow him. He took it to the house.
Did Beasley really run that curl route, or was he in mid-conversation and felt like he got too far away and just circled back? Can y'all hear me? That's funny. Well, so we got a couple questions in from folks that came in on it'sabanquetbeer@gmail.com. And this is, for those of you that are maybe new to Appalachian football, this was the stadium in 2007. Athletic Center just going up. We were in a little situation kind of back over this way that were some little golf suites that were temporary. But this was kind of a preview, and this, I don't think it came from this game. It looks a little bit too early in the season. But one of the questions we got asked about was the James Madison game in 2007. And that was a playoff game that we played. That was the first round of the playoffs. As year we beat Michigan, kind of limped into that a little bit. And Brownie, what do you remember about playing the Dukes in 2007 to start the playoff run?
I remember they were very talented. I believe their quarterback, was it Landers, Rodney Landers? Remember him?
Yep, that's right.
And I think our big horse that year was, of course, Armani, and Devin Moore was still pretty active in the backfield. And I remember Armani, I remember talking to Sean Elliott after the game sometime later. I was like, Armani's amazing. They said, yeah, a couple plays. We didn't block anybody. He's frustrated with his offensive line. Armani would run around and play backyard football and find some key on a couple drives, Dave and Randy. I believe he converted 4th down plays, like 4th and 7, 4th and 6, 3rd and 15, just breaking the pocket, being athletic and finding somebody downfield, moving the chains. And, of course, after that, they drove down and got field goal position. I guess you'll let the audio speak for itself on that.
Well, so I did some searching when we got asked about this, you know, our recollections from this game. You know, it's one of the classic of all the playoff games that App played back in the championship years, and even beyond that, this had to be one of the best. You know, you had JMU was 3 years removed from a national championship themselves in 2004, Appalachian 105, 06, and because of the way that App kind of got beaten up there in the middle of the year, you know, this was a game that App won, and I forget, Eastern Washington beat somebody the previous week. This should have been, or could have been, the only home game of the 07 playoff run. And it ended up being that Eastern Washington upset somebody, and we were able to host the rest of the way. But this was an awfully big heavyweight match for the round of 16. I do remember that. So I found this clip online. I don't know who did this, but this is about the last 2.5 minutes of that drive that ended up leading to the big play at the end that we'll go over. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to play this and just recall some things from it as we listen to this. So here we go. This is 2007, first round of the playoffs, the last few plays of the last drive where Appalachian would win it.
Shotgun snap. Landers on the move, trying to run up the gut to the 30-yard line. He finally is taken down by Corey Lynch.
Timeout,
a big pile of tacklers. James Madison will take the timeout with 49.2 seconds to go. Stopped 5 yards into the run. It'll be 2nd and 5 after the timeout. Landers
Now,
in the shotgun,
real quick,
twin receiver.
to set something up here, remember that this was very similar to Michigan in that Appalachian had taken the lead with a little bit less than a minute to play or right around a minute to play, and then JMU hit that big pass over the top. So it was almost like being kind of in that same situation again.
Yeah, and I remember we talked about, and one of the things we'd always look for pregame is I always try to look at the field goal kickers, both sides, and when the wind was swirling, Randy would give me the doodad report, figure out which way the wind was. And their kicker was not missing. I mean, he was consistent. So when they get down here, you and I turned and looked at each other like, man, they're going to kick a field goal right here.
Field goal.
And it's over.
All right, well, here we go. We'll continue.
Receivers to his right. Protection off his right hip as well. Shotgun snap. Landers on the move, trying to bust it outside right. Inside the 30 to the 27-yard line, short of it by 2 yards. Timeout, James Madison with 42 seconds left. It'll be 3rd and 2 coming up. It'll be 3rd and a long one from the 26. High formation behind Landers. 3rd down bell rings. Handoff comes. Fullback takes it up across the 20. Still on his feet. 15. Got to pull him down at some point in time. 10-yard line. Still churning forward. Pulled down there finally. With 32.6 seconds to go, timeout to move the chains. Inside the 9-yard line, bodies are everywhere.
We got too many guys trying to tackle the football. Need to tackle the player. Everybody's trying to strip it away. Now you got Titus Howard with an injury.
You're all going to have to call a timeout. ASU's got one left. 32 seconds, and now Landers will spike the ball and stop the clock with 31 seconds left. Call it 2nd down. Coming up here for the Dukes.
All right, so they're real quick again. They're driving toward the Fieldhouse end zone, and the weather wasn't gross that day, right? But it wasn't ideal, right, Dad? Is that how you remember that?
I think that's a good summation. We've seen worse.
We've seen worse.
They were on the right hash, which if you're a right-footed kicker, which I believe their guy was, I mean that's perfect, right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
31 seconds to go. JMU spikes the ball to create a down.
And what you got to try to do now, David, is try to prevent the touchdown. Don't give them a touchdown and make them try to kick the field goal in this spot right here.
2nd and goal from the 9. 31 seconds to go. Mountaineers up 1. Landers creeps under center. The fullback Sullivan. Mountaineers creeping up in the secondary. It'll be a handoff to Bolton trying to go to the 7.
Get on it!
Loose.
Get on it!
Ball is loose at the 11.
Yes, sir!
Have it! Mountaineers have the football with 22 seconds to go. Black and gold force the fumble off the left side run. Mountaineers move on.
I don't know who made the tackle, but somebody made a great tackle at the point of attack. They came up and just laid the wood to the tailback. That's probably going to be a flag down there for excessive celebration.
Let's go down to Randy Jackson on the Mass General Store sideline. Dad, unbelievable.
It's pandemonium down here. Charlie Cobb running by, jumping up and down. I'm sure the flag is for excessive celebration. I tell you, I don't think one fan left from the start of this game today, and they are on their feet now.
Big time.
Man, that gives me goosebumps.
So the funny thing about that is that as that play happens, and I know Brownie will remember this, he probably still feels it, as that transpired, and this is kind of like what the question was about, like what do you guys remember about this? That play transpires, Bolton runs up the middle, and I think Gary Tharrington or Jacques Roman was the one that pawed the ball loose. There's been great internal debate about that for years afterward, who got it. But as the ball's squirting off to the side and Pierre goes to jump on it, I'm standing, if I remember this right, to the left and Brown's to my right. And so as this play is going on, I am progressively crawling farther up Brown's back to where when that play ended, I was just about on his shoulders. And he goes all Ric Flair there in that moment and kind of knocked me back a little bit. But I mean, we were about as close together as we could possibly get. I started as the ball's rolling toward the end to the end line. I'm like crawling up his back, trying to get over him to go get the ball myself, I think.
It was incredible. Once whoever made the play, I think it was Roman that made the play, and I think Tharrington probably ended up falling. But remember, the ball was just kind of sitting there,
Yeah.
Almost like nobody saw the football on the ground. That's why I was hollering, get on it, get on it. As you said, bodies were flying around everywhere. Great chance to make a play there for Appalachia. But the whole time I was screaming, and later on, what was Mickey Matthews thinking?
That is where I come back to this graphic one more time here.
All he had to do is kick an extra point.
What was Mickey Matthews thinking? Yes.
We met him later, and he's such a nice guy. Just once we got to meet him later on, he's doing some broadcast up in the booth. He always come down and speak to me and you. First class guy, and I kind of felt bad about saying that once I got to meet him.
We had a chance, and I'm pretty sure you were still doing games with me at the time. We played Campbell in that game that got weather delayed in the middle of it. Mickey Matthews was doing color for ESPN, and we had to stay on the air. It was one of those deals where we couldn't break away, and we actually got him down to the booth and talked about that game. And he was, again, sore spot for him probably professionally. They had a team that was good enough to win a national championship. Certainly they played Appalachian pretty tight. And they had Scotty McGee was the big kick returner on that team. And I mean, they had some dudes, and he talked about it, just as calm, cool, and collected as possible. So always respected him for that.
Was it the next year we were up there about broke my hand on the desk up there? We kept kicking to Scotty.
Yeah, so App was up 21 points, I think, at halftime.
Yeah.
And the opening kickoff got returned by Scotty, and then another kickoff either got returned for a touchdown or awfully close. And that might have been one of the first backward summy conversations that we had. There was a clip that we had that we used to play all the time of, if he kicks it to him one more time, I'm going to come off here in a backward summy.
And we kept kicking to him.
It's funny. You listen to the clip of that game, and I know you guys, although we were all together, my perspective from down on the sidelines, what an incredible place to be. You got to know everybody that was down there. They were down there every week, and you talk about excitement. And between Ken Peacock and Charlie Cobb and all of those people that were always there, some of the conversations were just incredible. And I was lucky enough that when I'd go down the sideline, I'd always take the spot, even with the line of scrimmage, or if it was going to be a potential touchdown play, sometimes I'd go in the end zone. But you just hear that, and man, it brings back so many memories. And I mean, I still have goosebumps going up and down my arms just listening to that and thinking of some of those situations that came up over those years, man. Just incredible. I was really lucky to be able to do that for that long.
Brownie and I used to beat the crap out of each other in the booth. Something would happen big, and between either me punching Brown's arm or spontaneously dancing along with the ASU band every once in a while, it was we tried to keep the mood light. But I don't know how I can kill you that day, because that was something else. And that was that. You remember that led up to that play. There was a 4th and 5 or 4th and 4 that Armani, you were talking about Devin Moore. Remember, Kevin Richardson got hurt late in that game. He dinged his ankle, and Devin Moore came in and was the primary running back. And there was a scramble play on 4th down, driving on the opposite end toward the scoreboard end, that set up the fact that App got the lead back. It was like 4th and 4 or something like that, and Devin had to come back to that ball.
Yeah.
And I remember that being another one of those situations where I think everybody in the stadium at the same time stopped breathing. And you just saw this ball floating through the air, and Devin was laying on the ground as he caught it. And that moved the chains, and then App scored, I think, on the next play, if I remember right.
Yeah. That was one of those plays when you're a quarterback, he's so wide open, you kind of aim the ball. You don't really follow through. He aimed it, and Devin came, as you mentioned, laid out, horizontal to the ground, made a great catch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, and not that I'm certainly not trying to play favorites, but just my recollection, I mean, through the years, and you guys more than me, you were there longer, we saw some great quarterbacks. I mean, we were really lucky, I think, in some of the quarterbacks App has had. But I got more pleasure out of watching Armani play because he had just such incredible command of what happened. And it seems like the more difficult the situation got, the more command he had of that situation. And, he was just an amazing athlete.
Yep. Yep. And battled health issues all the time, you know.
Well, I mean, if you saw him walking down the street, the last thing you'd think of is that he was a big-time quarterback. I mean, it looked like for a while, it looked like a good strong wind would blow him over. But
not
man,
much of a yard mower. Not much of a yard mower.
No, that's for sure. Gosh, I remember that.
We've taken him out of that mix. He's got a crew that comes and does that now.
Got a Cub Cadet now.
Brownie, so there was another question that came in for you, switching the subject a little bit. Jason Hutchins wrote us an email to the It's a Banquet Beer email address, and he wanted to know, he apparently works with your boy Randy Joyce, and wanted to know if you had any scoop that he could take back to the water cooler, assuming that he social distances correctly. If he could throw any shade on Randy Joyce. You got anything for him?
Yeah, Randy came in. I think he was a freshman when I was a senior. I was trying to think where Randy was from. Kind of drawn a blank there. I think he's from North Carolina, but he was a good athlete, and he played baseball, if I remember correctly. Pretty good baseball player too. But he came in, and he was like the second or third quarterback behind me as a freshman. And really good guy, asked a lot of good questions, always trying to learn. And he was more of a pro-type drop-back passer. And it's kind of where Coach Workin and his staff recruited him for what we did my senior year. So it kind of fit in pretty well, him athletically. He wasn't really quick, but he wasn't slow, but he wasn't, an option guy. He was a straight drop-back passer, pretty smart, learned how to read defense pretty well. So Randy came in after I graduated, and I was still there doing my student teaching and helping as a graduate assistant. So what I do, basically, I come in during the week and I'd run the scout team offense. So pretty good for me, get the set up the plays and run the scout team offense versus the first team defense. So I was getting to throw and doing a lot of things there and being around the coaches and trying to learn how to be a coach and all that kind of good stuff and finishing up my degree. But the biggest thing that I think that my man could get on Randy about is he's like me, probably fell off a cliff, and he ran a 4.9 off a cliff probably. So he wasn't Armani, so to speak, but good guy.
Oh man, yep, he's definitely one of those QBs. I mean, there haven't been, I can't remember a time in the time that I've been studying app football or watching it, I don't think there's been a bad one. I mean, you go in from Randy, and then you get into, in the 90s, you had DJ Campbell toward the end when Jerry got there, and then you had Satterfield, and then you get Daniel Jeremiah, David Reeves in that mix a little bit, Joe Burchett into, let's see, who was after Richie, Trey Elder, Armani, Taylor Lamb in that mix there too. DeAndre Presley was a player of the year offensively. An embarrassment of riches, really.
And before I got there, you had Pat Murphy.
Yep.
And you had Robbie Price. And Robbie
Price,
unbelievable athlete before he got hurt.
Yep.
He tore his knees up a couple of times, and we talked about that. His senior year is kind of a shell of himself. But when he beat South Carolina, I mean, you watch that film of he slicing and dicing that option, and we had some great running backs, and I mean, they were athletic and pretty good back then. And Price was the guy that made them go.
Now, if speaking of James Madison, I'm pretty sure this was James Madison that this happened to. If Jason wants to build old RJ up a little bit, he can talk to him about the game that App was down, I think 21 points in the last 5 or 6 minutes of a game and came back and beat JMU. Randy Joyce was the QB of that game and threw a touchdown pass to John Settle right before regulation ended. We had a great audio clip of that for years that we used to play in the broadcast open. Charlie Harville was on the call, and Paul Dietzel was his color guy. Yep. And it was him calling Randy Joyce's touchdown pass to John Settle to finish that comeback. But that was one of the great stories of Appalachian football history, of being able to erase such a deficit so quickly. And it was against JMU.
Remember, we came back one other time, I think when Coach Moore was there, came back and beat him in the fourth quarter, scored 2 or 3 times, like 6 or 7 minutes to go, and beat him up there. A Hail Mary at one time, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
I remember that game.
That was Craig Styron, right?
With the catch?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. That's right. Yep, that was one of Brian's calls. He was dreaming about yard.
That's what he used to give me so much hell. I said, they're mobbing the field, and it sounded like such a redneck.
Wasn't it up there? We beat them another game up there, too? What's
we lost
I'm thinking of?
You're thinking about Richmond, I think.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. The playoff game where the window nearly killed us all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah. That was. We can end on that one. So we're playing at Richmond in the 09 playoffs, and that stadium, City Stadium, not the place they're playing now, but this was the last game at City Stadium, and that place was a piece, and that's being nice about it. And we go in the booth, and because it's like 12 degrees outside, Brownie had to have the window open, so we had to open the window. And as we open the window, this is right after they open the gates, and the concession stand is part of the press box, a very high school scenario. And right below us, people are queuing up to get their hot dogs and fun dip and all that stuff. And as we open the window collapses. And I felt like at that time we had just gone on the air, and I know my hand ended up outside the window, but I didn't break the glass. The glass broke first. So somehow my hand ends up outside the window. There's glass everywhere. And this window frame is about to fall out. 2 hours before kickoff. But I remember thinking, man, if we'd have opened that window 45 minutes later, people would have been covered in glass, have been like Nakatomi Plaza down there. With all the
where was the place that you had the guy that had to squeegee the window all the time?
That was at Old Dominion. Okay. Last year that we were all together, 15, we're up at Old Dominion. It is raining like Noah's Ark outside. And there was a dude, his job, he had a squeegee, and he would come by and squeegee the windows because the windows didn't open. And you couldn't see anything because it was raining so hard and it was getting foggy. And that was another arcane facility. And he'd just come by and just squeegee the window. So, wow. you gotta find ways for people to contribute. So anyway, well, boys, enjoyed it. That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
We might have to relive another memory in football / broadcast history again. That was cool.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
I got some really good stories from the road again. We're going to play. I'm going to pull up a word, and you guys got to think of the trip.
Oh, my goodness.
Be simple. Very simple.
I'm going to phone a friend on that one. I know just who I can call who has a great recollection of everything, up to and including what rest stops we stopped at or gas stations along the way.
He's got stock in crystals.
All right. So remember, if you got a question for us, email us at itsabanquetbeer@gmail.com. That will do it for this edition of Saturday Evening Quarantine. For the Hall of Famer Steve Brown and Randy Jackson on the Mass General Store sideline. This is David Jackson saying peace.
Have a good week.